Okay, so I'll leave this up for just a second so a couple of you can finish voting, but just a couple of announcements that don't forget tomorrow and Friday, you only have to be here half days. Come in at 10:20 or before that. If you come in before that, I think they're going to put you in the gym. But you guys will have cohort time tomorrow and Friday from 10:20 through lunch and then through the end of the day. So anyway, that's what's going on. Today, we're going to do another one of our discussions about a political issue. And today is, should U.S. cities defund their police departments? Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint. There is a document that, like we always have, that goes along with this. So go ahead and pull that up on Classroom. And then we'll talk about defunding the police, which is, it's a dumb name. Whoever came up with defunding the police, because Chris, this kind of gets to your question. What does it mean? Does it mean getting, because it sounds like, to me, when I first heard it, I thought, well, they want to like not give the police any money anymore. What's going on? So it turns out it's not totally defunding the police, which they need a better public relations department, whoever came up with the slogan, because it's a dumb slogan. It doesn't describe what it's about. So here's what it is, okay? It is reallocating and redirecting funding away from the police department to other government agencies funded by the local government, okay? It's not abolishing the police department. To me, that's what it sounded like, abolishing the police department. But then I read it and it said, it's taking some of the money that goes to the police. And so instead of buying tanks, which many police forces have, and assault weapons and so forth, the police will be freed. We'll take some of that money and then use it towards services for people who need services, okay? A lot of people call 911 when they really don't need to. So why has there been, and there is a city that has done this, and they did it 10 years ago, and there's a couple of cities that are doing it now. But the question becomes, why is this all of a sudden becoming an issue? Well, it is because of the Black Lives Matter movement and the death of unarmed African-American citizens at the hands of police, okay? And I've got 5 examples here of, I think, some of the most extreme examples. You probably all heard of George Floyd. This is the last moments of George Floyd's life here. This is the police officer in Minneapolis kneeling on his neck. And he was saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. This is Breonna Taylor. She was shot and killed in Louisville, Kentucky. The police raided her apartment. It was the wrong apartment, and they ended up shooting her. She was not a suspect. They meant to go next door or 2 doors down, okay? This is Eric Garner. He was in, I want to say, Queens, New York. He was selling cigarettes without a license. Actually, he was selling cigarettes individually out of a packet, which is illegal. And they put him in a chokehold, and he died in police custody. And then, of course, Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. He was walking down the middle of the street for some reason, and the police ended up shooting him. He was unarmed. And then this is Tamir Rice, who a few years ago, he was 13, it was 5 years ago, in Cleveland. He was playing with an airsoft gun in a park, and the Cleveland police came up, guns a-blazing, and shot him, okay? Now, before we continue, I want to point out that the police, I'm not defending these actions at all, but I'm saying the police have a tough job. Every situation they go into, it's life-threatening for the police. Even if they pull somebody over for speeding, they're putting their lives at risk. Again, I'm not defending the police, and I'm not defending the killing of unarmed citizens and so forth, but I just wanted to point that out. Now, here's some recent developments concerning this, okay? City of Austin, Texas, last year and this year has cut 14% from its police budget. Camden, New Jersey, the city I was talking about, did this, defunded their police 10 years ago. Minneapolis and Portland just started doing this year. Okay. And so what it does is that it's designed so people will get the help they need when they call 911. It seems like 911 has become, whether there's a violent action going on, or if somebody's in danger, or, if something unusual is happening, people call 911. Okay, now, so it's going to take money. Defunding the police is going to take money from police departments and put it towards things like mental health services. So increase funding for mental health services, increasing money for people who need drug treatment and so forth. Those are the two biggest calls that police get, are those related to drug addiction and mental health problems. Okay, now let's look at some arguments in favor and against, like we always do. Arguments in favor of defunding the police, which again, I'm using that term only because that's the term that the people who came up with defunding the police use. The police are supposed to be protecting the public, okay, not harming the public. They're supposed to be protecting the public. Nationally, 9 out of 10 911 calls are non-emergencies, okay? So 90% of the calls, the police don't necessarily, to 911, the police don't necessarily have to respond to those, but they're required to because that's what the law says. The police are trained for violent encounters. I'm going to go back to this photograph here. This is what the police are trained for. Okay, they're not, they're not necessarily trained on how, because they go in thinking that this is a dangerous situation, and 9 out of 10 are not dangerous situations. So defunding the police could, according to those in favor of it, could decrease police shootings. Money for mental health, addictions, and homelessness is a better use of taxpayer dollars. It decriminalizes these folks. Okay, so yeah, sometimes people who have mental issues do stupid things. Are they a danger to society? Probably 9 times out of 10, no. So let's use these tax dollars to get them help. Okay, it reduces officer workload. Next week's topic we're going to take a look at is whether or not jails should be places for punishment or reforming criminals. And in the research I did with that, I found out that the police actually don't solve most crimes that are reported to them. Okay, one of the reasons might be because they're out on non-emergency calls. They're doing the job of a mental health person or a drug counselor, because people call 911 first off, I should say. Okay, so they could focus on solving these crimes, and then also recent changes, including how some officers are trained and body cameras haven't brought about the change. There's still people being shot, unarmed people being shot and killed by the police. Okay, those that are against defunding the police say that funding the police fully is protecting the public. That's the best way to protect the public. Why do we have so many people in jail? Because the police are doing their job and people are committing crimes. Cities are violent, can be violent, I should say, and police protection is needed. Here's some examples. Portland, one of the cities I mentioned, that defunded their police. This time last year in 2020, they had 1 murder. They have 20 so far in 2021. That's a 200% rise. Is that could be related to, defunding the police. The police are their presence is less felt on the streets. I've never thought about what it was like to be a criminal, but I remember teaching American history, and in 1919, the Boston police went on strike for a day. Can you imagine being a criminal waking up that day going, my God, there's no police out today. This is great. This is my dream. So this people that are against defunding the police say if you defund the police, there's going to be a big rise in crime. And I think this statistic might show that. Portland, and this is a headline I read from the 13th of this month. Portland mayor looks to refund police with a $2 million request as homicides spike. So the money that they've taken out of the police and given it to other departments, they're now taking back from those departments and giving it to the police. Giving it back to the police, I should say. Camden, New Jersey. They defunded their police. They did this 10 years ago. They said, you know, why don't we just do what defunding the police says, and that's taking money away from the police and give it to, you know, mental health services, homeless services, and help people with drug addiction. It did not decrease crime. Okay, a change in policy in Camden, New Jersey did. They got rid of defunding the police, and they decided that maybe we should just retrain our officers. So what they did was they retrained officers to avoid escalation. And what that means is, instead of, you know, obviously if somebody has a gun and there's a dangerous situation, they're going to come out with their guns pointed. But, you know, unless they're told otherwise, they're going to go in and try to de-escalate the situation. Okay, make it less stressful, talk the person down, as opposed to, you know, amping them up by pointing a weapon at them. And they were also trained to intercede if another officer was incorrectly using force. Okay, had that been used in Minneapolis, because there were 3 officers, I believe, watching this officer kneel on the suspect's neck, they too would have been in trouble, because in Camden, New Jersey, the way they were trained, they were supposed to pull that officer then off of the suspect that they feel that the other officer is using incorrect force on. Okay, so there's your background information. Does anybody have any questions before we continue? No? Okay. Okay, I'm going to make 3 groups. So I'll put you in your breakout rooms. 3. Go ahead and argue with your folks and see if you can come up with a solution. Okay, you guys coming back in the chat. There's also a link on Classroom. I have it's called a Jamboard. It's a Google thing. And what you can do on that Jamboard is, so I wanted to find a way to, I know some of you feel weird about and maybe intimidated by talking on video. So what I decided to do is put this Jamboard together. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so it's this Jamboard. You have a link to it. What I'd like for you to do is to put a sticky note on it and just give me your ideas. You know, whether you think it should be funded or defunded, tell me why. But do me a favor, when you make a sticky note, put your name on it, so I know that you that those are your ideas. Okay, so again, down here on the left side, about halfway down, there's a sticky note. And just park your ideas on here on what you think should be done. And again, you don't necessarily have to put just yes or no. You can say things like, well, you know, I can see this side or I can see that side. If we do this, this is going to happen. If we don't do this, this is going to happen. So throw your ideas on there for me. Make sure you're on the Bell 5 one too. Okay, so while you guys are doing that, would anybody like to, through the Zoom here, tell us your ideas and what they are? Just go ahead and unmute yourself and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see all of you guys. Just go ahead and unmute yourself and tell me what your ideas are.
So I think a big thing that we talked about was more than anything, making the police less violent, whether or not that has to do with taking away funding. And as for defunding them, I think if we do, it should be by significantly, or, you know, it shouldn't be, you know, half their funds. And I think a better way to put it would be more reallocating the funds as opposed to completely defunding.
Okay. And Tamir, you said, I see what you put on the board here. She put she thinks it should be defunded because the money could be put to better towards things that help people more. And she feels that police are very violent these days and have a tendency, I would assume, I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth here, that they tend to escalate instead of de-escalate. Now, that's something that is certainly has been talked about, and that's something that you know, the people that want to defund the police, it's one of their main points that they make. Okay, make sure you put your first name on here too, so I know that it's you that did that. The money should go towards mental health programs that are trained to deal with certain situations, unlike police officers that are not. Okay, this could also lead to less violent outcomes. Yeah, you know, I think policing is the toughest job that there is, because you don't know if there's going to be, you're getting yourself into a dangerous situation or not. If somebody does need mental health services, then who better to deal with that than a mental health, somebody who's trained, who's gone to college and you know, knows psychology and so forth. Okay. Jamie said we should defund the police. Even though may not see a decrease in current crime, it could be preventing future crime. It would help those with mental health issues. Even if we don't defund the police, we should at least have them direct their funds to defense rather than offensive measures that seem very excessive. Okay, you know, that's a good point that, you know, Portland has seen an increase in their crime rate. Is that short term or is that long term? You know, and I think the more help, I agree with you. I think the more help you give to people, chances are that they're not going to, commit a crime in the future. If somebody is mentally ill and that's why they're doing what they're doing, well, then get them the help they need, so they don't commit more crimes. Olivia said, yes, the police should be defunded because the misuse of power and police violence are at an all-time high, and money towards the police could be put to better use. Okay. Yes, we should defund the police because police officers feel like they can get away with anything due to them being police officers. I'm not going to, I don't doubt that police officers, some police officers have that viewpoint that I'm the law and I'm going to enforce the law. But there are other police officers that say, they feel like their job is to help the public. Okay. Anybody else want to say something over Zoom here? Thanks for sharing your ideas on the Jamboard. I appreciate that. I hate that name Jamboard, but that's what Google calls it.
I think something that should happen, again, whether or not this is taking funds away from the police or leaving them there to help with this, but I think police training should not only be longer, but I think they should, I think I've heard it called like warrior training, where they're trained almost more specifically for violent situations as opposed to, like you said, like 9 out of 10 of the calls that they get. So I think that the training should be, I heard that it's like 9 months or whatever, that it should be significantly longer. So.
Okay. Ms. Jagnowitz Ms. J could probably say something about that. You're in your 4th year of college to become a teacher, and you get more training than a police officer who's in way more stressful experiences than I've ever had as a teacher.
Yeah, I have to do like multiple placements and be out in the community. I had to have so many volunteer hours in schools before even getting placed. So there is a lot of extensive training that goes into things like education. So I think that was a good point, Chris.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to the Jamboard, see if anybody else added anything. Francis, I think this is you. This looks like your meme there. I believe we should defund the police. Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I worded it correctly though.
You wanna explain yourself? Just tell us what you mean.
Like, I don't believe it's like, okay, so like taking out the all their funds, I don't agree with that, but maybe like reallocating the funds, like you said, is better. Yeah, you know what I mean? But I don't think they should stop there. I think they should like put in programs to have them more behaved and calm during a situation. I know it's like dangerous and things like that, but did you mention being more trained to de-escalate a situation rather than?
Yeah, those are the words that I would use, and it sounded to me like that's what you meant, that there should be more de-escalation training. And you guys, I got to tell you too, when Miss J becomes a regular teacher, she has to work 3 years with another teacher, 3 years, 3 school years with another teacher, and Ohio requires this to make sure that she's doing her job correctly, which she will. She's not going to need that supervision, but they provide that for everybody. They make everybody do that. I don't know if they do that with police officers or not. Imagine being a rookie officer and then, get into a situation that you feel like that your life is in danger. You might be a little trigger happy there. Okay, let me look at the Jamboard again. Okay, good. All right, you guys, I'm gonna let you go because there's like 30 seconds left. Thank you for sharing your ideas. This seemed to work well. So everybody got a chance to express themselves. Make sure that you've finished the 2 sides, the document that you guys always work on. And I will see those of you in person. If you're in my cohort, I will see you tomorrow and Friday. You'll get sick of seeing me by then. But the rest of you, I will see on Tuesday of next week. Any questions before we go? All right. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and I'll see you later.
See you later.